This is the true story of 4 American soldiers who fought valiantly and took the lives of 150 Taliban fighters. However, this victory came at a heavy cost. The story begins at an American base camp, once controlled by the Taliban. Some soldiers were enjoying tea, sharing light-hearted banter. Among them was a soldier named Danny, who was about to get married. Naturally, the others couldn't resist teasing him about his impending nuptials. But their light mood was soon interrupted when Danny was summoned to an emergency meeting. In the meeting, they were informed that a Taliban leader, Ahmed Shah, had killed 20 Navy SEALs just a few days ago. In response, the U.S. government had devised a secret mission to capture Ahmed Shah and his right-hand man, Tariq, alive. However, this mission was not going to be easy. Ahmed Shah was a ruthless enemy, a devil in human form. He had a cruel habit of wiping out entire villages, which aided the American soldiers. The sergeant selected his 4 most capable soldiers for the mission: Michael Murphy, Danny Dietz, Matthew Axelson, and Marcus Luttrell. They were to scout the area overnight, while the rest of the battalion remained at a base camp a safe distance away. The plan was simple. Once Shah's location was confirmed, the larger force would move in for the attack. To reach Shah's hideout, they had 4 waypoints marked out. After crossing each waypoint, they would update the base on their progress. However, at the last waypoint, the signals became weak. Despite this, they managed to inform the base that they had safely reached the final point. After receiving this news, the air support that was accompanying them returned to base. Ahead of them lay the village where Ahmed Shah was reported to be hiding. Murphy scanned the village through binoculars and spotted Ahmed Shah and his army. With the target confirmed, Danny tried to send a message to the base, but the radio wasn't receiving signals. Then they heard the sound of someone approaching. It turned out to be a group of shepherds leading their goats. One of the shepherds accidentally stepped on Marcus's foot, spotted them, and tried to run away, but they quickly caught him. A satellite phone was found with the shepherds, confirming their connection to the Taliban. The team was now faced with a dilemma. They couldn't kill the shepherds, but releasing them meant risking the mission's failure. If they let them go, the shepherds would surely inform Shah. Their radio wasn't working, so Murphy used the satellite phone to call the base, but the signal was too weak, and the call disconnected before he could speak to the sergeant. They tried repeatedly to make contact, but to no avail. Meanwhile, the other soldiers at the base had left for another mission, meaning they couldn't help, even if they wanted to. Murphy made the tough decision to release the shepherds and climb to the highest peak of the mountain to contact the base. Axelson disagreed, arguing that if they lost Shah today, he would kill 20 more Marines tomorrow. But Murphy was in charge, and they had to follow his orders. Releasing the shepherds proved to be their biggest mistake, as the shepherds rushed to inform Shah at twice the speed. The team reached a wrong peak where neither the radio nor the satellite phone worked. Frustrated and exhausted, Murphy declared that if they couldn't make contact with the base by evening, they would retreat. Just then, Axelson spotted movement through his scope. As soon as he had a clear shot, he fired, killing the enemy instantly. They had a long-range gun with a scope, allowing them to pick off the Taliban fighters one by one from a distance. But the Taliban were closing in, and the firefight began. A bullet struck Danny, severing 2 of his fingers. Axelson was shot in the shoulder, yet they continued to hold off the enemy. Marcus called out to the team, indicating that the path on their right was safe, but the Taliban had already flanked them with machine guns. With no safe options, they moved left, but Murphy was hit. Bullets rained down on them from every direction. With no other choice, they retreated. Marcus threw a smoke grenade, and they managed to escape, but Axelson was shot in the leg, and Marcus took a bullet in the hip. Despite their injuries, they covered each other and made it to a trench, where they jumped, sustaining more injuries in the process. Yet they quickly regained their composure and hid under the trench. Murphy once again tried to use the satellite phone, but it was futile. The Taliban began firing from above, and a bullet struck Murphy in the arm. They were too vulnerable in the trench, so they moved to a new position. Exhausted from the relentless fighting, they found a brief respite under a mountain. Marcus filled their wounds with mud to stop the bleeding as they walked. Barely able to catch their breath, they were found by the Taliban once more. Forced to jump into a ditch for the second time, Marcus tried to carry Danny on his shoulder, but Danny was shot and fell. The Taliban took the ring Danny had bought for his fiancée and shot him, then attacked with an RPG. Murphy realized that without support, they wouldn't survive. He handed all his magazines to Marcus and told him he was going up the hill to contact the base. Marcus tried to stop him, knowing it was a suicide mission, but Murphy was determined. Dodging bullets, Murphy reached the top of the mountain and called the base, informing them that they were trapped in the hills of Shakar village and needed immediate support. But before help could arrive, the Taliban found Murphy and killed him. Marcus and Axelson were forced to split up to increase their chances of survival. As the Taliban searched desperately for them, 2 Apache helicopters appeared in the sky. Marcus and Axelson felt a surge of hope, believing their comrades had come to rescue them. But their relief was short-lived. Before the Apaches could land, they were attacked with an RPG. One helicopter crashed, killing all the soldiers on board. The other helicopter was also under heavy fire and was forced to return to base. Axelson was now surrounded by an empty magazine, but he fought bravely with his pistol, killing 2 more Taliban fighters before succumbing to his injuries. Marcus, meanwhile, was calling out for Axelson when an RPG hit near him. Miraculously, he survived the explosion and hid under a mountain. The helicopters returned, diverting the Taliban's attention from Marcus. When they didn't see any movement, the helicopters returned to base, leaving Marcus behind. Night fell, and Marcus, alone and injured, slept under the mountain. The next morning, he awoke to find that one of his legs was broken. He painfully set it back in place and continued moving forward, eventually finding a small pit of water. As he quenched his thirst, a group of Afghans appeared. Marcus, suspicious and fearful, held a grenade in his hand, warning them not to come closer. But the Afghans, who were enemies of the Taliban because Shah had killed one of their brothers for helping an American soldier, wanted to help him. With no other options, Marcus decided to trust them. They took him to their village, where they gave him shelter. One man in the village opposed helping an American, fearing that the Taliban would burn the village if they found out. Marcus, unable to understand their language, repeatedly threatened to detonate the grenade. But the Afghanis reassured him that they were there to help. Marcus wrote a message on a map, indicating the location of his base camp, and handed it to the Afghan, asking him to deliver it. The Afghan immediately sent one of his trusted men to relay the message. Soon after, the Taliban arrived at the village, searching for Marcus. They entered every house and eventually found him. They dragged Marcus to the very spot where the Afghan's brother had been beheaded and prepared to execute him. But the Afghans and the villagers, armed with guns, confronted the Taliban, forcing them to release Marcus. As they left, Tariq, one of the Taliban leaders, warned that they would return for revenge. The villagers brought Marcus back home, where he used a knife to remove the shrapnel from his wounds. The pain was so intense that he fainted. While he was unconscious, the Afghanis cleaned his wounds and changed his clothes. That night, every villager stood guard with a gun, but it passed without incident. Shah, Tariq, and their Taliban forces prepared to attack the village. The villagers were ready, but just as the battle began, the U.S. soldiers, having received Marcus's message, arrived with air support. As the Taliban launched their attack, an RPG struck the house where Marcus was hiding. Despite the chaos, the Afghanis managed to move Marcus and his son to another house, but Tariq spotted them, leading to a deadly confrontation. The Afghan killed Tariq with his own pistol. Meanwhile, a Taliban fighter found Marcus and beat him brutally, attempting to strangle him. Just in time, the Afghan son handed Marcus a knife, which he used to kill the attacker. The battle outside raged on, with many Afghans losing their lives. But when the U.S. soldiers arrived, the Taliban were forced to retreat into the forest. The area was now under American control. Before leaving, Marcus was handed the child and thanked the Afghan, who had risked everything to save him. In this way, the story based on a true incident comes to an end.